Okay, Thursday edition of the After Show. Got Wake and Justice with you. Wake over here on the East Coast.
And Justice over here on the west coast of, well, you know, the contiguous United States of America.
Heck yeah.
Thank God it's Giovedi. You know, we honor the great God Jove because, well, at least here on the After Show, Thursday is truly the gateway to the weekend. And speaking of weekends, how are you doing, Wink?
Not bad, not bad. It is 46 degrees, a little drizzly out there. It's been drizzly all week, actually. So we got a week of that going on, but that's all right. It's going to be in the 40s for the next couple of days, so this is about as high as we're going to get is 46, 47, 48. Mind to get in the chat, just go to netrootsradio.com, scroll down the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page, there is a link to the chat, so click that. Join us there.
And on the leftish side of the page, right to the leftish of the chat room link are the donate buttons, or if you prefer, the contribute buttons, which is probably what it will be rather than donate because of certain kinds of, laws of the land, they call them. Isn't it weird? Laws of the land? What a quaint notion, Wink.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So quaint. But all kidding aside, thank you for your generosity on that. Our little mini fund drive is ongoing, of course. And after show pods can be had by way of Spreaker, which is the raw data file format, and that comes fairly quick during the day. And later, the perfected files will be available on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, and other platforms of your choosing. If you choose to do the one with the little heart, you'll do so at your own risk.
Yeah.
And let's see, here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, it is currently 50 degrees, Wink. We are expected to go to a high of 67.
There you go.
Occasional rain. Right now, it's not wet, but it's sprinkled a bit.
Yeah.
It's the kind that I like. But occasional rain, maybe showers tonight. Thunderstorms tomorrow. Gusts of wind going to 60 miles an hour. What the hell?
Yeah.
Well, good thing I didn't put up the delicate little ivy things.
Yeah.
They would just be damaged, wouldn't they? And, but, still more work to do. It was so much easier when I lived in my little in-law unit in Berkeley. I had a little garden.
Yeah.
About the size of a porch. And I had some potted plants and, Now, the bigger house was lovely in its landscaping and such, but I didn't necessarily have to take care of too much outside of what, I considered to be my domicile.
There you go.
And I had a nice little deck that I had built for myself when we first converted the place over and stuff. And there wasn't much work to do to it. I mean, certainly we didn't have the kinds of winters in Berkeley that I'm experiencing now. My God, Wink.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, this is where my elitism comes into play. Holy hell.
Yeah.
No wonder people move away from that. Jeez.
Yes. Retire at least. Get out of there. Yeah.
And in this environment, it's like living on a boat again. You sand the boat. You start on one part of the boat and you work your way all the way around, right? And as you go, you're varnishing and whatnot, and you get back to where you started, and you know what? It starts all over again.
Yeah. Yep.
So my poor sister had some, shall we say, some extra laundry to do because of some. I think in the old days we would call them vermin. They came within the hair follicles of the grandkids.
Yeah.
Right. From school. And so, of course, all bedding has to go. And it did something to their plumbing, and now they have to spend about $1,500 to $1,700 to get, the main elbow that goes out to the dump to the street replaced. Nice,
there
huh?
You go. Yep.
Yep. That's what owning a house is all about. And compound that with weather. And I guess I don't need to tell anybody who experiences that except for, the small little pockets that don't have the severity of that. Of course, we did have our earthquakes. We had that. There would be snow in the Bay Area. In my almost 35 years there, Sutro Peak, where Sutro Tower is, or Sutro Heights, where the big towers are. That's like one of the highest points in San Francisco. That would get a dusting. And occasionally we would get a dusting. When I say occasionally, like once every 7 years or something, get a dusting at Berkeley. But it wasn't completely unknown. But I don't know. It's for you. Okay, that's my cue to move on because we got Angie coming on today, and because we had so much to talk about yesterday. And it's just even more today. We have to catch up. All right. These are the issues we will be attending to today. A right-wing super PAC makes a desperate attempt to link the top Democratic candidate for Tom Price's old seat to Osama bin Laden. That's right. A right-wing mega donor paid indicted ex-Congressman Steve Stockman, Tea Party Steve Stockman, paid him $450,000 to spread fake news across Texas. How we know that is a little fun. We actually had Stockman in the news last Thursday when he was indicted on this charity fraud scheme he was running.
You got to get into the fake news business.
Oh, man, I know. Jeez. And revenue-hungry cities, this is where the metal meets the road, literally. Revenue-hungry cities mess with traffic lights to write more tickets and make driving more dangerous. Because when money's involved, that's what we're going after. Damn it. It used to be in revenue-hungry cities, they could pull you over, and break your tail light, and then charge you for resisting arrest, and then exact some funds out of you, and then you're on your way, like they did in Ferguson. Can't do that anymore. So we'll just shorten the time on the traffic lights, and, what's a few accidents when we can get those, $350 running red light tickets going? Interesting. On the last half, as I mentioned, we are again going to visit with Angela Marks, also known as Angie in Washington State, for, a discussion on saber rattling in the China Sea. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman's lawsuit against Trump over his energy policy, and, hey, wink, there's a whole lot of stepping aside going on. Yeah, all that plus the Connect, Unite, Act, Daily Co's community calendar, and more. Of course, there's always more on the after show. With that ever so fine fellow on the East Coast with his ever so subtle East Coastal elitism, his name is Wink, and this guy back over here on the West Coast with my overt and blatant elitism, bound by no geographical limitations, and my name is Justice. And we do this here on the after show 5 days a week for an hour-ish. In this particular, specific, and peculiar tear in the fabric of space-time, because who loves you, baby? Yep. Hey, we don't need Pepsi for cultural appropriation. You can just come right here. I was told when I was growing up, it might have been in Catholic school, that as being like a white person, you have no culture, so we have to adopt them.
Exactly.
And we do. I mean, we have no rites of passage. Getting a license to drive a car, that's a rite of passage? Give me a break. That's nothing like, going out and having a shamanic experience and coming back and teaching the tribe what you saw and then going on and leading a good life.
There you
go. Getting a driver's license was our passage from childhood to teen adult. Nah, we have to appropriate other people's cultural markers so that we can give meaning to our own, shall we say, sallow life. Okay, let's get on with these stories. Oh, you know that we're still alive today. We didn't wake up to being a nuclear crisp.
Right.
So that's always a good sign because, you hope that North Korea really doesn't have a missile that can get that far.
Right.
You hope. which means like you don't really know. They may,
Right.
with a little bit of help, you know. And who might be helping them? What did Khrushchev say about the capitalists, that the capitalists would sell him the rope that he hangs the capitalist with?
Yeah. Yep.
Just, just saying. All right. You know, when all else fails and you run out of Hillary Clinton and Susan Rice stuff, just say Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
And I bet you 31% of the population, which is the base that Trump relies upon.
Yes.
Now, Driftglass calls them pig people. Okay. So just so we know the range of what we're talking about here. And I kind of think that Driftglass is probably, correct.
He's in the ballpark, definitely. Yeah.
When they hear Osama bin Laden, you know they see the 44th president.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is out of Think Progress by Aaron Rupert. Super PAC affiliated with House Republican leadership has put together an ad linking John Ossoff, a Democratic candidate for the suburban Atlanta congressional seat formerly held by Tom Price, before he became Trump's Secretary of Health and Human Services, linking Ossoff to Osama bin Laden. You know, the one that became, he's not that important to me in the Bush years. The guy's dead during the Obama years. We tracked him down, got him. There you go. What was Ossoff's offense, Wink? Well, getting paid by Al Jazeera for documentary films produced by his company, Insight TWI. Wow, Al Jazeera. From an administration that quotes Sputnik? Come on. And let's be clear, Wink, in spite of, the Bahraini royal money connection, in spite of that, or is it the United Arab Emirates? Regardless, some oil guy there, family, royal. This is not RT. Al Jazeera is not RT. But let's continue. The Congressional Leadership Fund's ad begins with a narrator saying that Al Jazeera, a media outlet that has been described as a mouthpiece for terrorists, has been paying John Ossoff thousands of dollars. Those words are read over a clip of bin Laden speaking, or whatever it is. The ad concludes by asking, what is he hiding? How can we trust him? Yes, how indeed? The Insight TWI films featured by Al Jazeera included one outing unlicensed doctors for performing abortions in unsanitary conditions in Nigeria, and another exposing foreign food aid fraud in Ghana. In other words, another do-gooder, so they must be doing evil if they're doing good. Because we do evil and we accept it, and that's good. Yeah, that's different. They're trying to help the world. We're trying to help ourselves. And I have this Bible right here. It's called the Fountainhead Week. And it says, screw the poor. And if you can walk over them with some, spiked boots, all the better.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
In direct contrast to the suggestion that Ossoff somehow conspires with terrorists, Ossoff produced a BBC featured film last year profiling women who were fighting ISIS in Iraq. Ossoff worked as a legislative aide on national security issues for Representative Hank Johnson, a Democrat of Georgia, before he got into documentary filmmaking. In a statement sent to Think Progress, Ossoff campaign manager Keenan Pontoni said, "This smear attack is truly shameful. John served as a national security aide, had top security clearance, and he's proud of his work as an investigative filmmaker working for outlets all over the world like the BBC. Well, that's fake news. Didn't Donald say so? Sky Vision, and yes, Al Jazeera. John helped stop the theft of U.S. tax dollars and helped expose atrocities committed by ISIS. Comparing that important work to helping terrorists goes beyond the pale. Indeed. In March, NPR reported that the Congressional Leadership Fund spent $1.1 million in ads attacking Ossoff. One spot features old footage of Ossoff dressed up as Han Solo, while lightheartedly mocking Georgetown's alcohol policy from his days as a student there. The suggestion being that Ossoff's not mature enough to serve in Congress. Not like, the silver-maned con man, rainmaker. Shall I say quack, doctor, Tom Price. He's mature enough to know how to, do a little bit of self-dealing. And not necessarily on the side, but right on the House floor. That's just me. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports that while Republicans have held Price's old seat for decades, Donald Trump struggles in the district. He won the territory by a 1-point margin that gives Democrats hope of flipping it. Ossoff has surged ahead of his Republican competitors as the April 18th special election draws nearer. And a poll released yesterday pegs him at 43%, with the number 2 candidate at 15%. Ossoff needs to hit 50% to avoid a runoff election, with the second place finisher on June 20th. And there's maybe some kids in Macedonia, getting paid by, the FSB to make sure that 50%, he's at what now, 43? They're saying, yeah, we can work with that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, update. A mailer distributed by the Georgia Republican Party doubles down on the Congressional Leadership Fund smear. Below an Al Jazeera logo on their webpage, it says, once you work for them, you cannot work with us, meaning the United States. Now, Al Jazeera has received the Columbia Journalism Award and numerous Peabody Awards. Its work has been recognized by Republicans like Senator John McCain, Republican of Arizona, and Donald Rumsfeld, which, I don't know, maybe it's not so reputable after all, but I see the point they're trying to make. Of course, John McCain will have recognized it, but he'll be on the floor tomorrow saying they are a threat to our way of life, and something must be done. Because John McCain does that. Profiles in courage. John Kennedy is rolling in his grave, Link. Yep. Well, he's been rolling in his grave for a long time. I mean, that's how he got put there. But that's another story for another time. Steve Stockman. I don't know. Comes from Texas. Now, that's not a bad thing, okay? But it does kind of make you wonder how these guys get away with it. Is there something systemic in a particular kind of good old boy culture that perpetuates itself? Maybe Donald Trump Jr. is right. Or was it Eric who said, nepotism is just a fact of life? Makes you wonder. And, of course, let's remember the Tea Party was not a populist uprising sent to, right wrongs. That, they were there to right wrongs, like making sure that Nixon was run out of office. That was a wrong to them, and they have to right it. But a wholly funded and subsidized, which is redundant just in that statement right there, by the Republican Party and the Kochs, Petersons, dare I say the Mercers as well. Remember when it was just the Hunt brothers, with their little silver scam and stuff? Remember, and they were the big boys in town, running politics in Texas.
Oh yeah, yep.
A lot of people learned, said, if they can get away with it, so can we. I mean, the Hunt brothers, look at them. And they did. This article is out of the Huffington Post. My God, what am I doing? By Jacob Fenton. Late last month, federal prosecutors indicted Representative Steve Stockman and two of his aides, charging the Texas Republican and his confidants had ripped off charities, laundered money, lied to regulators, and misled wealthy donors. That's where it got a little touchy, okay? All this other ripped off charities, come on. Poor people, screw them. It says right here in the fountainhead, screw poor people. Laundered money, lied to regulators, that's just what you do in business. But misleading wealthy donors and taking their money, or even worse, causing them embarrassment, that will not stand.
Yeah, it's overstepping your bounds right there.
And that happened before, during, and after his failed 2014 primary campaign against John Cornyn, the second-ranking Republican in the Senate. And, a guy who's able to do everything that Steve Stockman could do, but a little bit quieter and, the normal sort of way. Do not bring embarrassment to us. The fact that the former congressman is facing multiple felony counts made national news, but one of the most interesting details in the 40-page Stockman indictment escaped notice. The suggestion that Richard, and I'm going to butcher his name and I apologize, Richard Uihlein, one of the country's biggest conservative political donors, personally wrote a check for over $450,000 to mail a fake newspaper called The Conservative News. They need a little bit of, our kind of like liberal rhetoric. You know that? Our liberal syntax, the Conservative News. Yeah. I would have called it the Lone Star Crusader, but, I'm prone to poetic flair.
There you go.
And that was mailed to voters across Texas. The paper, which prosecutors say was part of a Stockman-run, secretly funded operation intended to take Cornyn down, included the dubious claim that Cornyn wanted to ban veterans from having guns, had voted to fund abortion, and was and this is the worst, secretly working with Democrats to grant amnesty to illegal aliens. Brown people.
That's the big one right there. That.
Mailing a fake newspaper is not a crime, nor is secretly funding a candidate to do so. Thanks to a series of court decisions now known collectively as Citizens United. It is perfectly legal for billionaires to put out a bunch of propaganda, lie to people, and spend vast sums of money to do it. But don't you dare take their money and or in the process embarrass them. They might sometimes forgive the taking of the money, but, they can be a little, that will not stand. Okay, so the reason we know this is because Uihlein is suing Stockman for, stealing his money. He did put out a paper. And there's also the reason I took the Huffington Post article is a little bit more comprehensive, but I wanted that link for folks. And there is a quite comprehensive rundown of the full range of Stockman's indictment, not just the $450,000 that I think what the mega donor is upset about is that he looked how much it cost to put the paper out, and he's thinking, wow, Stockman just pocketed $445,000 from me. What the hell?
Yeah.
So that's considered fraud. It's going to cost me $450,000 to mail this paper and to follow up, and it probably only cost him $5,000 to do it, or I don't know, $15,000 say, and he pockets the rest. And he did that to a bunch of people. And if he just kept it with charities and regulators, would have been okay.
Oh yeah.
But
Yep.
Uline and a bunch of other he touched
Yep.
a few of them. Bumped into him. Money fell out of the pocket. He picked it up.
Right.
Okay, that's how they work on that side wink. And I know. And the thing is that they should just come to us. I don't know. Alamo's Last Stand.
Yeah.
Call a paper that.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
I don't know.
Get news from the chat that Gorsuch's nomination has been blocked.
Well, it should be.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, are you serious? So it has been blocked.
It
So
has
in other
been
words,
blocked. Has been
the
blocked,
Republicans are saying, well, maybe we better bring another nominee instead of change the rules.
They'll probably finagle something so that they can get him in there. I don't trust those, But anyway, at least
good.
For today.
Well,
at least
that's something that we can delve in a little bit more deeply with Angie when we get on the horn with her. This next article is by Sarah Lazari out of Alternet, and so I'll quickly go through this, and because we want to connect with Angie here. But as she opens up the article with, as privately operated red light cameras proliferate. Do you like that? Privately operated. Oh, yes. Across the country, cities and towns, shortening yellow lights spike the number of tickets and thereby increase revenue. The profits come at a social cost, as shorter yellow light times have been associated with an increase in car accidents. And shortening just from, and she uses Fremont, California as an example, that in February of 2016, it pledged that it would refund at least $490,000 in tickets to drivers after it was revealed that for a period of time in 2016, yellow light times at two key intersections were shortened from 4.7 seconds to 4 seconds. Took 7/10 off, driving an increase in tickets. Each of those intersections was outfitted with red light cameras run by Redflex traffic systems. But by shortening it by 7/10, their revenues spiked. And I'm trying to get to the part where, at the same time, accidents spiked at a greater rate than the revenue that was being brought in by tickets. Nice. So, following public outrage, when people, and this wasn't anything that was leaked or released, people just started digging in themselves, who are caught up in this morass. And they noticed a trend. And the outrage is such that now at least Fremont is giving money back to people. So I'll just leave you with that. Strapped for revenue, take 7/10 of a second off of the red light. Tickets go up. And sorry about the broadside, the T-bone. And, you ought to get those side bags next time, don't you think?
Yeah.
And there's going to be a Republican who's going to mandate that you have side bags, and they'll have their finger in the pot, dipping some, money out on that scam too. All right, let's get to our Jim Hightower break. We'll come back, go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Cuz community calendar. And we're going to speak about some not so breaking news, because it was breaking yesterday, and now it's fermented into something else entirely. And even more breaking news right now with Angie Marks. So you're listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Wink and Justice on Netroots Radio. The After Show, okay? And we will be right back.
Question: what do you get when you mix a barrel of Fables, a sack of mendacity, and a gross of Whoppers, topped with a thick layer of subterfuge? Answer: the fiasco called Trump Care. We're going to do something that's great, the Donald Trumpeted when he endorsed House Speaker Paul Ryan's bill to displace Obamacare. But Trump Care was great only in the sense that it was a great big bloated concoction of lies. Start with the original lie that right-wing Republicans have harped on for nearly a decade. Obamacare is a total failure. We'll, quote, repeal and replace it as soon as we get control of the national government, they shouted. Then, when Trump happened, he made killing Obama's Affordable Care Act his top legislative priority. Ryan chimed in with a perfect imitation of Chicken Little, squawking that the ACA is in a, quote, death spiral. In fact, the president and the speaker were lying. While Obamacare has flaws that require fixing, overall, it's been a tremendous success. It has reduced by almost half the number of Americans who had no health coverage, benefiting especially many white working-class people who had supported Trump. Moreover, the overwhelming majority of the millions who gained ACA coverage are satisfied and glad to have it. Undeterred, the Trumpsters tried another Chicken Little tale. The health law is doomed, they squawk, because it's been unprofitable for the insurance giants, so they're withdrawing. Bogus! In fact, the profits of Aetna, Cigna, Humana, United Health, and other managed care corporations have soared under Obamacare. The biggest one, United Health, has seen the value of its shares skyrocket by a spectacular 480% since the ACA expansion of Medicaid. This is Jim Hightower saying that's why Trump is so hostile to truth-based news. Actual facts exposed his lies.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back, and thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York 21 on the East Coast. We are still attempting to connect with Angie Markson from Washington State. Skype, if you're listening to us.
Yeah.
Can you help out, please? Come on, stop being in the way. And our crew are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud, whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio, because, Skype is what we call around here an act of God out of our hands in some ways. Okay. We can pay penance, And sometimes the gods listen. But most of the time, it's an act of God, and it's right there in the actuary forms. All right? But our crew are able to, because of their intergalactic technical abilities, allow Networks Radio to span the globe, out past the solar system, and beyond. All right. Angie, if you're listening, if you can try to call in, 417-717. Is that right, Wink?
Yep.
417-717-1454.
Yep.
All right. So today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Codes community calendar is facilitated by Paradise 50. And he brings up something that we rarely think about. In fact, we might even disregard. And that is, a lot of us feel overwhelmed, Wink.
Right.
Some of us feel underwhelmed. But how many of us really do feel whelmed?
Yeah.
No one ever thinks about that.
Exactly.
And he's been, well, quite whelmed lately. Whelmed. Past tense. Past participle. Engulf, submerge, or bury something or someone. A swimmer whelmed in a raging storm.
There you go.
Flow or heap up abundantly. The brook whelmed up from its source. Whelmed up from its source. I love that. Back in the days, it's actually considered archaic literary term. Thank you. So archaic, I remember learning it in Catholic school. And then he goes on. He actually has some fabulous NASA photos from, I believe this is Uranus. Am I right? Jupiter, okay. And juxtaposing those with some of Van Gogh's more, I don't know, frenzied paintings. Quite similar. It is very interesting. Okay. Events currently scheduled. Let's see. New England. Wisconsin Cossacks are forming their group. So Cosmail and Chris them to become part of Wisconsin Cossacks. Events currently scheduled, and Navajo maintains the list.
Oh, right up here. Hang on, I'll add you. Okay.
17 Cheers and Jeers Cossack meetup. Saturday, April 29th at noon at Flatbread Pizza in Portland, Maine. Cosmail and Hawks 42 to RSVP a seat. And of course, that is the planning session. You know that planning session for Networks Nation this year. Let's see. New York City Cossacks will be meeting up with Navajo, who will be in town on April 23rd at Spitzer's Corner, 101 Rivington Street, Cross Street, Ludlow at high noon. Cosmail Navajo to RSVP for that event, of course. Thinking Fella and Ojibwa have been organizing the third Epic Glacier National Park meetup held on June 30th through July 2nd of this year. Please see this diary for important planning details. And imagine a link at the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Codes Community Diary. And then, as we would say, be the link.
Yeah.
Be the link.
Having all kinds of trouble with
from the... I'm sorry?
Angie
Wink.
called, but having trouble adding her, and I'm trying to... we'll continue. We'll just try to do it again.
Okay, let's just keep trying to add her. All right. And as mentioned earlier, the aforementioned Networks Nation 2017 Daily Co's annual Cheers and Jeers dinner occurring this year, Wednesday, August 9th in Atlanta, Georgia. Oh my gosh. At 5:30 p.m. Get out of the humidity, as I say. Location to be determined. Cosmail Navajo to RSVP for a seat, and that will also determine the size of the venue. And if you don't, as I've said before, you'll be lucky to get some third-rate karaoke bar. Absolutely third-rate. All right. Are we still attempting to connect with her? Or?
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm still trying here.
Okay. All right. Well, Russia, if you're out there, would you lighten up a little bit so that we can do our Skype connection? Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly.
We can get her on board. What do you say, Wink? Is that a plan?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mentioned that she had just texted here on a DM that there is weather-related issues and she's having trouble getting a signal out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it could be.
And so we should try to continue attempting to connect with her.
Yeah.
And but there is weather up and down the West Coast. I mean, like I mentioned before in our weather report, I have rain with possible thunderstorms coming through. So she's feeling more the brunt of this the storm as it whelms its way southward. Okay. All right. So hold on just a second here. I really want to save the Snyderman story for when we do actually connect with Angie, and so I'll hold off on that. And so, of course, we know that Nunez is stepping aside. Part of our conversation with Angie was about there's a whole lot of stepping aside going on. And so there wasn't much news coming out, and there's a little bit more background now. And this article is by Brad Reed out of Raw Story. The House of Representatives Ethics Committee has launched an investigation into Representative Nunez, Republican of California, Fresno, to be exact, over his late-night trip to the White House to get an exclusive intelligence briefing from two members of the Trump administration. You mean picking up fake news? Driving it around the block and coming back and then presenting to the president? You kind of wonder about this too, Wink. Is the president the one being Donald Trump? Are they manipulating him with this fake news? I wonder. I mean, it just sort of occurred to me here. Huh, interesting. Well, that's something else. That's tinfoil hat stuff. Let's just say that the White House has a message to get out. Nunez was on the transition. And he's a loyal loyal soldier. Party apparatchik? Oh, no. Oh, God. We're running out of terms here, Wink. Per the Daily Beast Tim Mack, the House Ethics Committee announced that it will investigate whether Nunez, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, disclosed classified information to the public without possible authorization. As Mack notes, the committee has an equal number of Democrats and Republicans on it, and it also has subpoena power to compel Nunez to testify.
All right, okay. Yeah, we're trying. We're still efforting. It may not work. I guess we.
Have you ever had late night meetings with anybody named Boris?
No.
No, he would never say that. He'd go, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate myself. Yeah. Then right after is, do you brush your teeth with your right or left hand? I invoke my right. We're going to be hearing that. It's going to be John North all over again. I'm telling you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Nunez first got into hot water when it was revealed that he traveled to the White House grounds late at night to receive information related to the incidental surveillance of Trump administration officials that occurred in 2016. You mean the incidental surveillance that they were caught up in and the investigation's been going on for a couple of decades on these Russian mobsters? How very interesting. You mean the White House wants us to know about that? This is how stupid they are. You think we're not going to talk about this stuff? In a statement issued today, Nunez blamed pressure from left-wing activists for his decision to at least temporarily step aside in leading the House's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. or as somebody might, or a lot of people might refer to these left-wing activists, might actually refer to them as true American patriots. We're not the ones colluding with the Russians here, okay? We're just trying to root out what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
I think we can say that on terrestrial radio.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah. I not only think it, we can.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We know the words we can't say. We can't say them. Not on terrestrial radio, of course. Just so
right.
You know.
Right.
I love it. He's going to blame it on left-wing activists like Obama. Obama got me out. The secret, the what is it called? The deep state. And I keep going, deep state, man. This ain't Turkey. It's called a shadow government here. Come on. Jesus. Umberto Eco prophesied that eventually they're going to talk about the Templars. You know that's next. My God, why do we? Why do we? Why do we? Oh, darn here. Let's see. Okay.
Yeah, I just can't get a hold of it. It's just not happening. The magic is
Darn.
the Skype
We're
magic's
sorry,
not happening
Angie.
today. Yep.
Yeah, it's weather related, and
Yep.
like, so it's not only a Skype issue that,
right,
according to our actuary terms, is an act of God,
right,
but is an actual act of God, not a virtual, but an actual act of God.
Exactly. Yeah. Either that or Putin. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I'm just talking about the weather. I don't think
just go with the weather.
has enough power yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see your other point.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this has just came out here a few minutes ago by Aaron Rupert out of Think Progress. The federal agency responsible for the nuclear arsenal is now tweeting out Breitbart articles. They're pushing out Islamophobic fake news stories. Okay. Now, this just caught my eye since we just went through Ossoff's predicament of getting paid to do investigative reporting for Al Jazeera, many Peabodys, Pulitzers, et cetera, awarded by the Columbia School of Journalism, highest awards. And that somehow connects him, Ossoff, with Osama bin Laden, because there's the Al wink,
right,
and then the Jazeera.
Yeah, yep,
right there. I mean, everybody knows that if there's an Al and then a Jazeera, that's totally connected with bin Laden, because we don't have that here. Whereas Breitbart, I mean, what's more American than Breitbart?
Exactly.
I remember when, oh God, Flor, my ex-wife, who I refer to affectionately, as the French actress, because that's what she was, and I guess still is in many respects, though she doesn't perform as much as she had. But regardless, we come back to the States, right? And now she, her real maiden name is Italian, right? And though she goes, her acting name is from her mother's name, and which is an aristocratic French name. So we come back to the States, and this border agent, I think they were just called customs then. It wasn't ICE, this was back in the 90s. And wanted to know how come somebody with an Italian name had a French passport. Of course, her dad's side of the family had been in, France for 7, 8 generations, like even before, Jesus made his trek and installed himself as a French king. Even before that, Link. You probably don't know what I'm talking about, but it's an old story. But regardless, this border agent couldn't figure out how it was possible that somebody with this Italian name had a French passport. And of course, the person's wearing a name tag, right? And it was some like Germanic name, or, it was not Smith. Let's just say it. It wasn't Miller. And I remember the look in the guy's eyes is like, wait, what do you? Oh, okay, I get you. And it just struck me as being, what was the only test they had to pass? A drug test. That was the only test they had to pass, was a drug test to get the job. That's what I was thinking at the time. Yep. Yeah, she was, let's just say, she was polite and very sweet, but she was able to, it was sort of like a delayed reaction. After we got through the line of stuff, then you could, the person then felt very foolish. And she did it very politely and sweetly, which its resonant effect was even more amplified. So. Okay, so the branch of the Department of Defense responsible for the United States nuclear arsenal is now tweeting out articles from the same outlet that brought you a black crime vertical and headlines like, "Gay rights have made us dumber. It's time to get back in the closet." Yep. I don't know. See, this is what's scary, Wink. If we did get into this biz, we'd probably be working for Breitbart. That's what's bad.
Yep.
Damn it. Because you just come up with the most stupid thing in the world, and they go, yeah, that'll fly.
Indeed.
And then you're thinking, well, I meant it as a joke. I thought it was the most outlandish thing. We could just all have a good laugh. Here, pass me the whiskey. No cinnamon, please.
Exactly, yeah.
There's some kids, just as an aside, there's some kids east of me up in the mountains, drove to Reno and robbed someplace and stole this whiskey. They're teens. Right. And it's like some sort of cinnamon. It's like Red Fire or Red Flame. Some weird stuff that they put cinnamon in the whiskey. I would have thrown them in jail just for possessing the stuff, whether they bought it legally or not.
Right.
How dare anybody possess that? And then I guess it goes to, how dare a store even have it in their shelves? I mean, this is what the world's come to, Wink.
Yeah.
We would be sitting around at Breitbart right now, drinking this cinnamon-infused whiskey, laughing at our, hey, we thought this was the stupidest thing in the world, and I don't know, the pig people are buying it. Next thing you know, you are the pig people. On Wednesday, the U.S. Strategic Command tweeted out a story from Breitbart, the platform for the alt-right, that was run by Steve Bannon before he started working for Trump last summer. Was run? Still is. And we know it. Let's see. Alt-right is a euphemism popularized by Richard Spencer, head of the white supremacist National Policy Institute and one of the country's leading contemporary advocates of ideological racism. Well, that's a nice way of calling him a Nazi. Yeah. Ideological racism? Alt-right is a euphemism? I'm sorry. Yeah. No, remember? Spencer the dapper Nazi. If you're dapper, they let you into the club. The article the Strategic Command shared is mostly uncontroversial stenography of a Senate Armed Forces Committee hearing and features comments by Air Force General John Hyten expressing concern about the state of, quote, the nuclear triad, end quote, a term President Trump appeared to be unfamiliar with during the campaign. In response to people expressing outrage with the Strategic Command's tweet, the article's author, Breitbart Pentagon correspondent Christina Wong argued it out with critics in her replies. And there's a string of them here in this article I won't be going through. But let's just say that it was rather spirited. Wong might not see a problem with the Strategic Command's tweet, but by legitimizing Breitbart, the Department of Defense is normalizing a website that equates feminism with cancer, and was recently under fire for running a fake news story about a Muslim mob setting fire to a church in Germany. Never happened. The main Breitbart Twitter account trolled users expressing concern about the development with retweets. Well, that's nice. They know how to fan the flames, don't they? Because I guess it drives clicks. But I don't want to legitimize him even that far, because I got to say, that could be an excuse also. And I've been on a few panels with Breitbart folk, like Schleister, Achtung, and a few others, and they're not just in it for the money. There's some stridency there. Let's not kid ourselves. The Trump administration cracked down on government social media accounts in late January after the National Park Service retweeted posts including Trump's inauguration crowd size was smaller than Obama's. And the Badlands National Park posted tweets about climate change. A couple of days later, Think Progress broke the news that Department of Energy employees working on a solar power program were ordered to not share anything about their work on their private or professional social media accounts. Meanwhile, Trump has used his official POTUS Twitter account to spread lies about the scandal involving his campaign's contacts with Russian officials. Okay. Well, that's why he's president and we're not. Apparently, huh, Wink? My God. All right. Well, we will get out of here. It is Thursday, and we have, of course, Hartman coming up about 6 minutes after the hour. We'll listen to Africa Land by Nova Lima in the interim. And after Hartman, we'll have, of course, Amy Goodman with Democracy Now!, followed by Randy Rhodes. And I think that she's going to be able to put some reason to a whole lot of stepping aside going on, let alone everything else. All right, so hold on. I don't know why, but wrong time. Okay, so let's see. Oh, I wanted to mention once again is that Randy Rhodes, and then some great content throughout the rest of the day, and we'll be back here bright and bushy, same time, same station. Stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. And why? Well, because who loves you, baby? Okay, Wink. I will see you on the other side.
Right. Row.